All right, so some good news, right? If you're sitting here going, does the NFL start anytime soon? Well, the answer is yes, but not before we get through at least one more week of preseason. And if you haven't been following along, have we got a treat for you? Nobody better than Mr. Teddy Cover is here on the opening line report, breaking it down, not just in preseason, but get ready, all throughout the NFL season. Teddy will be here guiding you through all of the opening line report games from week one straight on through. But Teddy, we still got one more preseason game to go through here, week 3, before we dive into the regular season, which of course reminds us you got a little show note coming up for those that might be joining us for the first time.
Yeah, of course. So the NFL opening line report, we do it normally every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. But yesterday, couldn't do the show because the numbers weren't up yet. So I'm like, all right, let's push back to Tuesday. But normally, moving forward, next Monday and beyond, every Monday for the rest of the year, we'll do an NFL opening line report. Next week, with no games on tap, I'm going to take this time to talk about futures, and we're also going to answer all the questions that you have. So be sure to post those questions up, not just here in the chat today, but also in the comments section on YouTube. Last week, Drew and I both went in there and answered, I think, every question that was asked. Next, we'll do that again this week, so we'll answer your question there. We'll also talk about some of that on air next week, as well as NFL futures. And then the following week, Labor Day on Monday, we'll have opening lines to talk about for week 1 of the regular season. And then obviously every Monday moving forward, we'll have true opening lines to talk about week in, week out. That said, for today's show, we got NFL preseason week 3 to break down. Drew, I'm so used to Drew. Joe, let's get right into it.
I have been called much worse, so I am okay with that. If you guys, if you love NFL content, go ahead, hit that like button, give us the thumbs up, and hit the subscribe button because we got a lot of it coming your way here at WagerTalk TV. All right, Teddy, we're going to drive in. Game number 1 on the board, 105, 106. How about Pittsburgh and Atlanta? I'm seeing consensus 4.5, 38.5 here, Teddy, coming up in just a few nights. What are you thinking?
Yeah, Thursday night. And just real quick, much as I love working with you, Joe, and I do love working with you, Drew just called in sick today. He has a little Vegas flu after coming back from Vegas. It happens to all of us. Drew should be back to join me next week. And if he's not, well, hopefully we'll have Joe instead because he is a fine fill-in in any reasonable opportunity. Let's talk about the Steelers and the Falcons. This line I saw 2.5s and 3s at the opener. We've seen some Pittsburgh money. Totals, we've seen a little bit of over money. There were 38.5s. Now there are 39s out there. But the Steelers have clearly been the initial choice for the Steelers. Good that preseason, Mike Tomlin takes preseason seriously. And even if you don't see Kenny Pickett, the concept of getting Mason Rudolph and Mitch Trubisky in a preseason game, 2 guys who have been NFL starters before, that's worked out well for Steelers bettors. So far this August, it worked out well for Steelers bettors last August. And certainly that is the type of QB that you like for this time of the year. And I don't know if we're going to see Pickett at all this year. Pickett has played 3 series in the preseason, each series that ended with the Steelers reaching the end zone. All 3 touchdowns, by the way, coming from at least 25 yards out. The Steelers have been, here's Mike Tomlin's quote, I like that we've been getting in some splash. They're making big plays. For Atlanta, we saw the starters on both sides of the football this past week early on. I'm not convinced that Atlanta and Arthur Smith is going to go with any starters this week. That's another reason why we've seen money for Pittsburgh. Desmond Ridder and company wasn't necessarily they moved the ball down the field and they got intercepted on a tip pass at the end zone. Lots of penalties, lots of issues for Atlanta in that regard. That wasn't clean football. The quotes from Arthur Smith and company after the game were more about cleaning up the penalties and mistakes than any other factor. But the money's come for Pittsburgh. I don't know that we're going to see more Steelers money. We might. I certainly wouldn't look to bet this one the other way. Pittsburgh has all the makings of a bet on preseason team.
107, 108 on Thursday. Indianapolis taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, Teddy, I'm seeing right around the same, 4.5 and 38 as a consensus with this one. What do you think?
Yeah, and again, we've seen the money for the favorite. In this opened, I saw 2.5s and 3s at the openers. Now we're seeing 4.5s for Indianapolis. So they have taken money. Of course, it comes down to QB rotations in many of these instances. The Colts didn't play their starters. They didn't play Anthony Richardson. They didn't play really any of their starters in that game. They had the 2 days of joint practices, and that was enough. But there are at least a thought process that Indy's going to go with starters here. And, of course, even when Anthony Richardson sits, you have a bet on QB duo in terms of Gardner Minshew and Sam Ehlinger, 2 guys who can make plays. Ehlinger was great down the stretch last week, and Minshew, it was 13 of 15. He's not trying to make plays downfield, but Minshew can guide that offense. Indy, again, has the makings of a bet on team, and Philadelphia doesn't care at all. Mariota hasn't been that good. Tanner McKee, the kid out of Stanford, hasn't been particularly good. Not anyone we're excited about in August. Though, McKee had a good outing last time out. Worth noting, the quote from Nick Sirianni after the game talking about Mariota, who did not play well. Quote, "I know he didn't play the way he wanted to tonight after the standards. It's about us finding what works for him." So we may see a fair bit of Mariota in this one. I'm not convinced he's going to be awful like he was last time out. Then again, Mariota was pretty awful last year. I'm not sure if he's a QB. I want my money on even plus 4.5 in a preseason game.
All right, we move to Friday here, guys, August 25th, and we're going to be looking at 109, 110, and that's going to be Detroit taking on Carolina. Everybody loves Detroit this year, it appears, especially a lot of people at the home office there, Teddy, but I digress. I'm still looking at 4.5s here, Teddy, and 37 now as a total with Detroit taking on Carolina on Friday. What do you think?
Well, I'm in the home office, Detroit back there. Detroit down because he lives in Pittsburgh. That said, if they're real Lions fans, there's no optimism. Lions fans know. That's the truth of it. As Lions fans are as pessimistic as any humans on this earth, and deservedly so. They've been forced to watch the Lions every day of their lives, or every Sunday during the fall, every year of their lives. And very few instances has Detroit been good. On paper, they're good here, but they're certainly not taking money this week. A third straight game where the money has come for the favorite. This opened as low as 2. Many books opened 3. Now we're seeing 4.5s for Carolina. Total hasn't moved all that much, 36.5 to 37. So the Lions signed Teddy Bridgewater late, and Teddy Bridgewater looked pretty awful. Again, the starters were out. 5 of 11 for 34 yards, a first quarter fumble. They didn't sign him until August 10th, so it's not like he's been in this offense. He got sacked on his first snaps. He was 2 yards on his first 3 possessions. And Campbell kept him on the field deep into the second quarter of that ball game. We may well see more of Bridgewater. Campbell's quote, "We just kept sputtering out. I want to see if we can get him a rhythm." That never happened. So we could see a fair bit of Bridgewater here, but Bridgewater wasn't good last year, and he wasn't good in week 1 of week 2 of this preseason. For Carolina, the thought process is this week we're going to see some more starters. Now, the Panthers have looked awful, the starting unit, but they're not using regular season packages. They're not using regular season protections. They're not using regular season motions. We've seen money come against Carolina for week 1 of the regular season because they've looked so bad here in the preseason. I don't know that this is a preseason that we want to be looking at Carolina and saying, yeah, that's going to carry over. Frank Reich after the game. Yeah, they did blitz a few times. I think we made the right protection calls. I felt like he was comfortable and poised in the pocket and sees what he's supposed to see. Of course, talking about Bryce Young, the rookie, who has not exactly gotten a lot of love yet from the betting markets. He's getting love here. Carolina likely to play their starters, likely to be more interested than Detroit. At least that's what the markets think here on a Tuesday.
All right, moving on, guys. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button here as the NFL content, it's a lot of it coming your way here, especially in this next game because everyone loves to make fun of New England. 111, 112, Teddy. New England taking on Tennessee. 2s is what I'm starting to see, 38.5 in a consensus. What are you thinking here with the Patriots taking on the Titans?
We've seen a couple of bets on Tennessee here, nothing much. This line really hasn't moved a whole lot. Open 2.5. Now, as you mentioned, it's a split line, 2.5. So a couple of books have taken some Patriots money. some Titans money. And of course, Tennessee just finished a game in which they ran for 281 yards on the ground. Shout out to the O-line. They opened it up, was the quote coming out of there. And of course, the Tennessee team, we saw nothing but Malik Willis for the full game. You like a team that plays only one quarterback, or a team that gives a quarterback a full half and the other quarterback a full half. The fewer quarterbacks, if they can play, you're in better shape because it gives them a chance to get into a rhythm with the offense. When you have a QB that gets to a series or two and then another QB gets a couple of series, you don't see the rhythm from any quarterbacks in those situations. And this is a situation for Tennessee where we could see a whole lot of Malik Willis again. Will Levis suited up, but got hurt. He had a lower body injury that he suffered in practice. I don't know yet if he's going to play here, and I don't think we'll see Tannehill at all for Tennessee. Now, there were starters on the offensive line for the Titans last time out in the first quarter. It is worth noting, of course, the quote from Kevin O'Connell from Minnesota last time after Tennessee ran for 281 yards. Quote, "Listen, if we were playing our normal calls, then some of those runs aren't getting off." So Tennessee able to take advantage of that and rally from behind. I'm not convinced we're going to see a groundswell of Titan support here. And, there are things to like about New England in that preseason finale game. My initial lean is towards the Patriots as road chalk.
All right, and the late game Friday, guys, this Friday, August the 25th, before we head into the weekend of some preseason football. How about it? The Chargers taking on the 49ers, Teddy, a battle out west here. I'm seeing 7.5. Looks like the hook is predominantly available. San Francisco laying it 37.5 as a total in this one, Teddy. What are you thinking, Chargers, 49ers?
Nothing but 49ers money so far. And I don't disagree. I mean, look, I try to bet against the Chargers in the preseason. I bet against them last week with New England, part of the 67% run we've had through the first 2 weeks of preseason. It's been good for the clients so far. We'll see if we can keep it rolling again this week, but back-to-back rock-solid winning weeks for the first 2 weeks of the NFL preseason for my clients and I. And if you're going to bet this stuff, you better beat it. That's my whole philosophy with NFL preseason. It's like, look, if I'm betting it and everyone's going to yell at me for betting these exhibition games, there better be a good rationale, and there has been. It's worked out very well, and LA is a one-way team for me in August. Brandon Staley does not care. Easton Stick went the whole game last time out. It's the first time he played all 4 quarters in the game since he led North Dakota State to a title over Eastern Washington in the FCS title game in January 2019. So it's been a while. That said, Brandon Staley after the game, I think it was an uneven performance in the passing game for us. We didn't protect the passer very well. I didn't think that we threw with accuracy. And honestly, I look at LA as a team with limited depth and a coach who doesn't care at all about these August games. Chargers are one way: bet against or don't get involved. So we want to lay the 7.5 with San Fran. And look, you look at that QB rotation for the 49ers. You go Trey Lance and Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy. Don't know if Purdy's going to go again this week. He got a cup of coffee last week, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a few reps this time around. The market seemed to think that he will. But the key, of course, is that you have Darnold and Lance coming in behind it. Both of them, Lance was able to move the football this past week, and Darnold has been a starter in the league as recently as last year. So the theory with San Fran with the QBs is that they're supposed to be stepping up. But so far in 2 preseason games, I haven't seen that level of execution for Shanahan's team. Not that I'm willing to lay 7.5 points for them. This, for me, likely to be the easiest pass on the board.
Glass half full. You got to be excited if you're a 49er fan to see Purdy out on the field there, at least somewhere out on the field anyway. And we do have, of course, a whole slew of games coming up this Saturday, Teddy, on the 26th. And as usual, guys, if you are watching this back and you are new here to Wager Talk, we love hearing from you as well. So drop us a comment in the section. Let us know exactly which one of these games coming up here, week 3 in the preseason, you are most likely to be interested in. A lot of questions still to be answered, including with these next 2 teams here, Teddy, in week 3. 115, 116 rotation number. How about the Seahawks taking on the Green Bay Packers? even 3, Teddy, with a 40. Nice total here. 40 is what I am seeing in this matchup here. What do you think with the Seahawks and the Packers here this weekend?
Yeah, and with all of these games total-wise, there really hasn't been a whole lot of movement. The movement that we've seen, I'll call it arbitrage movement. When one book's open 40.5 and one book's open 39, and it ends up landing on 40 where it is right now for this game, that's not a line move. That's just pure arbitrage. You know, someone was going over 39 and under 40.5, and the markets are settling on 40. And that's been the case for the majority of these early week total moves. When it comes to the side, we have seen a little bit of Packers money. I don't disagree with that. You want to talk about a fat and happy quote from a coach after a preseason game. Here's Pete Carroll, really pleased with the overall feeling of the game from start to finish. We got the starters, a little bit of work, so selective starters on play to both sides of the ball, just enough to get them out there. He seemed very happy. Drew Lock played very well again. Second straight week where we've seen something out of Drew Lock, something positive out of Drew Lock. And I don't know really how much we're going to see any of that from Seattle this week when it comes to starters being in the game, when it comes to Geno and Drew Lock on the field. Lock might play, and he might play a bunch. He's played a bunch this preseason. We could see more of that. For Green Bay, their game got cut short against New England. Tough beat for anyone to have the over in that contest. It's been Jordan Love and Sean Clifford, both of whom look pretty good. This preseason, Love's another QB that probably needs to get to work, but I haven't seen any quotes that indicate that he will. So this is one where the info I haven't seen good info for the Green Bay side yet. I do know that Seattle, those weren't bet on quotes next week for Pete Carroll. That's a fat and happy team off a solid preseason showing.
Yeah, and I don't know, Teddy, is it possible, can you tank the preseason? Because I'm pretty sure this next team, Arizona, going to be taking on Minnesota, might want to consider if it helps them get a better draft pick here. I am seeing 36 as a total, but I am also seeing 1.5 for Minnesota, a slight favorite in this one. Arizona, tough team to get a handle on, Teddy. What are you looking at here?
Oh, Arizona's an easy team to get a handle on. They're the worst team in the NFL. It's not close. My power rating numbers go 1 through 31, and then 32 is Arizona at the bottom, and they're, I think, almost a field goal worse than my 31st ranked team. Arizona is the worst team in the league. They've been awful in preseason. They don't have the depth. They're very rough. They're third and fourth string defense. They played Kansas City last week, and it was, it was a little bit embarrassing. And of course, first-time, first-year head coach, first-time, first-year offense coordinator, first-time, first-year defense coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, the head coach. All three phases, we got to get cleaned up, or that's what's going to happen against a good football team. You're going to get beat pretty good. It will be very black and white to our guys, what we need to improve in a hurry. Clayton Tune's been okay. Colt McCoy's been awful. David Blau hasn't been very good either. So the veterans for Arizona have struggled. But again, when you're playing behind a weak offensive line with weak receivers, it's not surprising that you're learning a new offense. Not surprising even veteran QB struggle. Arizona is not a team that I'm excited about betting on, although this might be the game to do it because Minnesota, again, the next game that they win or cover in August under O'Connell will be the first. O'Connell doesn't care. My clients and I cashed a ticket against him last week with Tennessee. And Minnesota played good early, but the second half, there are no stunts. Again, Tennessee ran for 281 yards against him, and O'Connell's quote after the game was, "Yeah, well, if we'd have tried, we wouldn't have done that. But we were working on some stuff." The offense was ugly. Second string line. Nick Mullins took a beating. Jaron Hall, the rookie's no good. Minnesota is not a team that I can lay points with in August. So it's Arizona or pass, which probably means pass.
I was just waiting for you to finish that one up, Teddy. Yes, pass it in all likelihood it is. As we move on to 119, 120, the Browns taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in this one, Teddy. I am seeing 3.5s, and I am seeing 41s here. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, and the markets have pretty much been with Cleveland most of the way. There's a couple of books opened early that had KC as chalk, and that got flipped right around. And the books that opened a little bit later, KC 3.5, 4. Sorry, Cleveland 3.5, 4 at KC. Watson said Deshaun Watson at the halftime television interview last week that he would like to play in the final preseason game. In his only preseason action, he had 3 pass attempts and 3 completes in week 1, and that came after a thunderstorm. So the field was wet; they didn't want him on the field. In theory, we're supposed to see more of him this week. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I mean, you talk about quarterbacks who've made a name for themselves this preseason. We've seen a couple of rookie QBs do it, and Robinson's been one of them. He's played well, and his ability to make plays with his feet is exactly what you want in August. So we'll give the former UCLA product some credit. He's been pretty good. Obviously, Kansas City's been pretty good. Their first-team offense, the first-team offense didn't play well in the first couple of series. Then they started getting rolling. And then the second stringers and third stringers were pretty dominant. And what was supposed to be a light preseason night for the starters ended up becoming longer because it was a slow start for them offensively. In fact, Mahomes, I think after the third series, was like, quote, if we don't want to keep playing, we better score. And they finally did on the 4th drive of the ballgame. I'm not necessarily anticipating anyone who's meaningful for Kansas City getting playing time in this one. Hence, with Cleveland going with Watson and company, expected to go with Watson and company early. That's why the Browns are road chalk in this one.
All right, we've got 121, 122 here, 1 o'clock Eastern kick. How about them Buffalo Bills taking on the Chicago Bears? I'm seeing now even a little more, 39 for a total, and I'm still seeing Chicago is the slight favorite. 1.5s appear to be the number here, Teddy. What are you thinking about Buffalo taking on the Bears this weekend?
Best game of the night. 2 teams that care. For Buffalo, okay, they were awful against Pittsburgh. All right, in all kinds of different ways. The quarterback play wasn't there. And obviously when you have Josh Allen, Kyle Allen, and Matt Barkley, that's supposed to be as bet on a QB trio as you can find. All right, but Bills' offensive line got destroyed in it. They had 13 penalties. They had poor protection. While the starters was playing, there was all kinds of out of sync. They were down that game 27-0. They suffered some injuries in the offensive line, which gives them injury concerns, et cetera, et cetera. The quote after the game from Sean McDermott, and this is a bet on quote, it's clear we're not where we need to be right now. There's urgency for Buffalo in week 3, I think. Chicago side of the equation, Eberflus has been bet on all the way. He's a bet on. He's a guy that cares about winning games in August. Now, they didn't play Justin Fields last week. Don't know what's going on with Fields this week. But they signed P.J. Walker to be the backup. And Walker's been pretty awful. Nathan Peterman's played well. The 4th stringer, Tyson Bagent out of FCS, has actually been as good as anyone. They got hooked on him at the Senior Bowl, averaged 300 passing yards per game over the last 4 years. Eberflus, I saw poise. The delivery was there. The accuracy looked pretty good. Decision-making was good. So the rookie out of Shepherd University in West Virginia may get a little bit more playing time here as he tries to make the roster. In my opinion, that's not necessarily a bet-on situation.
Wow, maybe this one will change his mind. Again, guys, if you're just joining us for the first time, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you love NFL content, college football content, we are definitely the channel for you. So go ahead, hit that subscribe, hit that thumbs up, hit that like button, and of course, drop us a comment here. Tell us the game that you are most looking forward to this weekend. And I got to say, for me, it's going to be this one. 123, 124 here, guys. It's the Battle of New Jersey with the New York Jets taking on the New York Giants. I am seeing 39 as a total here, and 4.5 is what the Jets are going to be laying. Why is that, Teddy? What do you think's going on here?
Yeah, and this line basically hasn't moved from the opener. Jets opened as big chalk with this total in the same range, and the line has stayed fairly flat. Why is the excitement for the Jets? Why are the Jets laying 4.5, 5 here? It's going to be Aaron Rodgers' debut. Aaron Rodgers has not played in the preseason since 2018. He is expected, and he's been in every training camp practice. He's going to come in and get a cup of coffee. I have no idea how long he's going to play for. I wouldn't anticipate, I would expect the Jets want to see him come down and lead a scoring drive and leave the field. Of course, the backup duo, Tim Boyle and Zach Wilson, they weren't very good. The Jets weren't very good last week, in general. That was my only loser last weekend was taking the Jets against Tampa. And Tampa scored 13 points. Jets are supposed to be there, but Jets went 0 for 3 in the red zone and were -3 in turnovers. It wasn't a clean game. That said, they are using the final game as a dress rehearsal. Most of the starters are expected to play, especially if Rodgers is behind center. For the Giants, the Giants got everything they wanted from their starters last week against the Panthers. We're not likely to see any starters, so it's going to be Giants backups against Jets starters. That's why we're seeing 4.5, at least early on in that one. Don't know if Jets starters are going to get more than a series or two. But initially, it's supposed to be a mismatch, and that's why the Jets are big favorites against the Giants on Saturday.
So we've got two more coming up here. Rotation number 125, 126. Interesting for both these teams as the Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals continue. Now the Washington team that finally did something nobody else could do, Teddy, which was just beat Baltimore. I'm seeing 4.5 for Washington and 37 as the total for this one. What are you thinking here?
Which tells us this line tells you how Cincinnati's approaching this preseason, which is we don't give up bleep. And they don't. Trevor Siemian hasn't been good. He started his turn in the rotation. Don't know if we're going to see Jake Browning start this time around. I don't know that I trust Browning against the starting defense. The Bengals hasn't scored. They have one offensive touchdown in the first 2 games, and that came in the final 30 seconds of the game during garbage time. The run game hasn't worked. The offensive line hasn't been there. There have been penalties, and the quarterback play has been dicey. So we're not seeing a lot of support since a team with nothing to prove here in August, whereas Washington does, in theory. That said, Baltimore was Washington's 1s against Baltimore's 2s last night. Baltimore still was a better team, and Washington needed to rally and have that. I don't know if you watched the end of that game, the field goal that looked like it was about to zoom left and then curve back in to end the streak. In theory, it should have been easier for Washington last night. The fact that it wasn't is actually more of a concern for me, although they did get the win that they wanted. When a team's excited about a preseason game one week, I'm not convinced you're going to be excited about a preseason game the next week. This is a hard game to bet, not one I'm excited about laying 4.5 or taking 4.5.
4.5 is a rough one there. Interesting news for both these two next teams here, Teddy. 127, 128. The Ravens, which of course had that ridiculous preseason streak snapped there by Washington, taking on a Tampa Bay team, which I believe Coach Bowles just announced his starter for the year, so cleared that up here a little bit. I am still seeing 36.5s, and I am seeing Baltimore as the slight favorite of 1.5. What do you think we get here?
No idea what to do with this game. I don't want Tampa. I know Mayfield got named the starter. I'm not convinced Mayfield's going to play this week. He didn't play last week. He might. It could be a whole lot of Kyle Trask. And Trask was fine, but he's not someone we're excited about putting our money on in a game where you have to win in order to cover the point spread. Although, again, if he plays all 4 quarters, which he might, John Wolford got hurt last week. And this is all if, theoretically. I don't know we're not seeing Baker Mayfield. But I wouldn't expect to see it because he trashed the whole game, and that tends to be a positive sign for those type of teams. But Todd Bowles doesn't care at all, and John Harbaugh does. But Baltimore obviously didn't play their first string, second stringers last night. It was like third stringers and fourth stringers. Will we see first and second stringers this week? I'm not sure, but if we see something from Harbaugh that indicate that, we're going to see a whole lot of money coming in on Baltimore. So if you start seeing the line tilt towards the Ravens, that means Harbaugh said something. That's a quote I'll be looking for in terms of his playing time announcement over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours.
Edge is an edge here, guys. 129, 130. Teddy, a battle of, the east side of Florida at the very least here, as Miami traveling up I-95 to Jacksonville to take on the Jags. I am seeing a touchdown here. Consensus, it looks like Jacksonville laying the 7. It is one of them, the higher totals as well at 41 here. Teddy, what do you think with Miami and Jacksonville?
East side. It doesn't sound as good as West Side, dude.
That's true.
Yeah. Just West Side sounds better. West Side, Jags. Sorry. Jacksonville Dolphins. All the money's coming for Jacksonville here. It appears if Miami is not going to play anyone. Mike McDaniel's not a coach who cares a whole lot. Skylar Thompson's all right for a backup. I don't mind Skylar Thompson in the game. Mike White, again, I don't mind him. I don't know what his status is here. He didn't get off a pass last week. He did take a sack. Although there's some talk that Tua is going to get an extended run in this game against Jacksonville. The markets seem to think so. So if Tua in the first-string offense is out there, well, the markets don't seem to think so. That's why Jacksonville's favored. But if we see Tua out there, or the announcement that Tua's out there, we will see some Miami money. There was some questions about his status for this week, and I don't know the answer to that right now. For Jacksonville, when you talk about bet on QB rotations, and again, it's very different. We're talking about a rookie quarterback who's playing against all these third stringers in the second half versus someone like Nathan Rourke. Nathan Rourke played 4 years in college, played in the Canadian Football League, and now he's in the NFL trying to make a roster spot for Jacksonville. He's been great this preseason. He's been as good as you asked for MVP of the preseason. Nathan Rourke is one of these QBs that's going to be on my short list. CJ Beathard's trying to hold him off for the 2 spot.
Yep.
That's bet on for that duo, and Rourke's been really good. So you have a battle for the backup QB spot, and you have both quarterbacks playing well, and you have a Miami team that may not be all that interested. That's why we're seeing the Jacksonville money, and that's why they're laying a touchdown now in a game. And again, you start talking about these touchdown point spreads in August. Many times it's hard for me to get to the betting window, asking a team to win by more than 7 points at this time of the year.
Got just a couple of games left, 2 here on Saturday and 1, of course, on Sunday to wrap up the NFL preseason week 3 here. And we're going to head to Dallas. What better place to do at 8 o'clock Eastern time, 1:31, 1:32. Las Vegas, Teddy, them Raiders heading down to Dallas. I'm seeing 5. The Vegas Raiders are laying 5 and 38.5, let's call it here, for a total. What do you think about them Cowboys?
How about them Cowboys? And look, it's definitely worth noting. On every opening line report moving forward, I'm going to give you my lines for the games from week 1 right through to the Super Bowl. I'll give you my number for every single game. In the preseason, I've tried to make numbers, and I'm terrible at it. It's really hard to make preseason numbers. You need a lot of info, and you need to be making a lot of leaps of faith. So I've basically given up on making preseason numbers. But moving forward, I'm going to give you my powering number for every game, every week. One of the benefits of watching the opening line report. When it comes to, let me talk about the Raiders first, because Aiden O'Connell's having the preseason. Everyone here in Las Vegas is talking about him. And he's been really good. Of course, we've seen good offensive line depth from the Raiders. We've seen good receiver depth from the Raiders. We've seen opponents against the Raiders who just don't care very much. Wasn't like Shanahan was all that interested in week 1. It was the same story this past week for Vegas against McVay. 2 coaches that didn't care a whole lot. And guess what? They're facing another one this week. Who doesn't care? So the third-string rookie QB Aiden O'Connell's looked like the second coming of Nathan Rourke so far. But I worry more about the rookie QBs and the guy who had experience in Canada and the guy who was a 4-year starter and all of that. So I'm not convinced we're going to see quite the performance from Aiden O'Connell that we've seen. Jimmy Garoppolo played 1 series last week. I don't know if he's playing this week or not. The market seemed to think that the Raiders are going to get him into action. I would be surprised that if they do. Dallas, a lot of Will Grier, a lot of Cooper Rush, which isn't a bad QB duo. They have some cluster injury concerns right now. Linebacker and offensive line both are problems for Dallas after this past week. And, one of my NFL preseason rules, when a team has a cluster injury problem anywhere, they're a bet against team. Of course, you have to lay a price to bet against Dallas this week against a Raider team that has looked good in each of their first 2 preseason games.
It leaves us one more here, Teddy, on Saturday night. And, of course, we'll end it with one game on Sunday, the 27th. But just a quick reminder, guys, hit that like and subscribe button if you love this NFL content. college football content, postseason Major League Baseball content, you name it. We've got you covered here at WagerTalk, so just go ahead, hit those thumbs up. If you have a question, drop it into the comment section. And, of course, Teddy will absolutely get to it here and do his very best to answer them all throughout the week as we head to Denver to wrap up Saturday night. Teddy, 133, 134, and the Rams taking on them Broncos. And consensus 6.5. 36.5 is what I'm seeing as a total. I don't know. How much you believe in Sean Payton caring about this game, I guess?
Payton cares a little bit. McVay doesn't care at all. All right. I mean, he doesn't care at all. The Rams defense has just been gashed this preseason. You know, the Chargers ran for 214 yards to 6.9 yards per carry in the opener. And that was included some starters in the field in that ball game. You know, last week, Jimmy G never under any pressure. The running backs, you know, White and Bolden for the Raiders average 5.8 yards per carry. The Rams just don't care. They're unbackable at this time of the year. And it's not like they've got quality depth everywhere. They don't. I want no part of the Stetson Bennett, Brett Rippon combo. I don't think we see Matthew Stafford this week, and neither do the markets. If we do, it'll be for a cup of coffee, and that's it. You know, we saw Peyton get mad after week one when they got slapped around, didn't play well. We saw them find a way. They didn't sniff a cover last week. I guess they sniffed it, but they didn't get there. Russell Wilson was, again, he's getting a cup of coffee. He's getting a chance to play behind an offensive line that was better last week than it was in week one of the preseason. But I'm not convinced that Denver's any good. I'm not convinced that this is the team I'm going to lay a price with. The urgency's there with Denver right now this week, I think. And I know we don't want L.A., but you're not going to need bargains on the Broncos side in this one. Again, they'll have to win by a touchdown or more in order to cover the number.
In the altitude. All right, that leaves us one more game here, Teddy, and it revolves around a team in which we do have a question about, so we'll get your breakdown here between Houston and the New Orleans Saints. This is going to be Sunday, the only game scheduled here, guys, 135, 136. I am seeing New Orleans more than a field goal, 3.5, and the total 38 consensus here between the Texans and the Saints. What are you looking at here in this one, Teddy?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a national TV game on Fox. We got the national TV game on CBS this week. You know, the TV networks are doing their preseason as well. And you talked about the Saints. And this line open 3.5. It's pretty much been sitting at 3.5. We've seen no movement. Total open 37.5, 38. It's been sitting right there. We've seen no movement there. The markets haven't done a thing on this one. Houston, how do we say this? When we talk about the worst team in the league, and I said it's clearly Arizona, Houston's 31 on that list. C.J. Stroud was better this past week than he was in the opener. He played the entire first half, and he did lead the team to a field goal in the entire first half. Quote, I felt like I took a step. Definitely got to clean some things, but I feel like overall I got into a good rhythm and I started playing football like I'm used to. Again, 60 yards and a half for Houston, and their defense is iffy. For New Orleans, they didn't play any starters this past week. We saw game reps split, but this is a bet-on duo with Jameis Winston and Jake Haener. Haener, from the first day of minicamp, I was getting good quotes from Haener, and he's played well in both preseason games. And Winston, in my mind, is the single best backup quarterback in the NFL. Saints committed 14 penalties for 141 yards in that game. Dennis Allen was a little bit perturbed by that. So there may be some urgency here for New Orleans. If there's urgency for New Orleans, and it's starter against starter or second stringer against second stringer, the Saints are a good notch better than the Texans.
So it's interesting, Teddy, because we did see that one of the questions that came in on the Saints was wanted to get some of your thoughts on what you thought of them this preseason, because they're saying they noticed a little week one line movement. So they weren't sure whether or not have you been impressed with what you've seen from the Saints, and has it affected your the way you look at week one here in a few weeks?
So the week one line between the Titans and the Saints opened 3.5, got bet down to 3 over the summer, and now it's kind of a split line. Depending on where you're shopping, you can find a 3 with juice, or you can find a 3.5. Obviously, if you like the Saints, you'd want to lay 3. If you like the Titans, you want to take plus 3.5. And this is a legitimate edge that bettors have. You know, it's legit. All right. It adds a little bit to your expectation of every wager. You're taking plus 3.5 and laying 3. I'm not seeing any kind of significant groundswell of support for either one of these two teams. And I've heard a fair few people tell me they like Tennessee this August, and I've heard a fair few people tell me they like New Orleans. The Saints have a very easy schedule. And by very easy, I mean very easy. One of the easiest in the NFL. From a talent standpoint, they underachieved last year, and they had a ton of injuries. So there's upside for New Orleans, absolutely. That's why they're lined as a 9.5 win team. They're the favorites to win the division. I'm not looking at the Saints as a team that's garbage. This isn't bottom feeders. But from a power rating standpoint, while New Orleans is lined at 9.5 wins, they're my lowest power rated team that's lined that high because they're lined that high because they're of the schedule as much as any other factor. So I've got the Saints as a pretty good team, a little bit better than average. Let me just double check. I think I have them a little bit better than average. But again, I haven't updated my power rating since week 1 of the preseason. So these are slightly stale numbers, but they're not stale in any real way. And yeah, I've got New Orleans a little bit better than average, like a half a point or a point better than the average NFL team. Excellent question. Thanks for asking. And please keep those questions coming. Put them in the comments on YouTube. Try to answer each and every one of them and give you guys some love on air.
Love it. Absolutely. And of course, guys, it will be plenty more coming your way this NFL season on Wager Talk. Certainly the opening line report every Monday. Drew Martin will be sitting in this seat along with Teddy Covers. And once again, if you made it to this particular point in the video, you should know, Teddy, next couple of weeks, we're talking, I believe, futures is what you said is on tap here coming up.
Yeah, next Monday, I'm going to focus the show on season win totals and odds to win divisions. No, I'm not talking Super Bowl futures. You guys want to waste your money on Super Bowl futures? Knock yourself out. I'm going to talk the futures you can actually beat, which is winning divisions and season win totals. So we'll do that next Monday. The following Monday, we'll do a proper opening line report for week 1 of the NFL season. That'll be Labor Day. And yeah, you better believe we're working Labor Day. Labor Day is no day off in this business.
Smells like football there, Teddy. And again, guys, one way to guarantee you're not missing any content here, like this video that's on your screen, is, of course, by hitting that like and subscribe button. Drop a comment below. You've got to have some NFL questions heading into the season. And Teddy has got you covered. And again, Drew Martin, Teddy Covers, they'll be back again next week for another edition of the opening line report. Until then, don't be afraid, don't be scared. Check out these videos, guys. The NFL season and college football is upon us, and you've got great, and I mean great content information just a click away. Good luck, guys. We'll talk again soon.